What if I told you that the dream job you are, like, desperately grinding for right now,
Hmm.
the one you are completely obsessing over in 2026, the one you've basically built your entire identity and your whole calendar around, what if that isn't actually your dream at all?
Yeah, that is a terrifying thought for a lot of people.
Right. Because, I mean, think about the promotion you are literally losing sleep over, or that specific title you want on your LinkedIn profile, or, that corner office you're convinced will finally just make you happy.
It's the ultimate goal for so many.
Exactly. But what if, instead of being a manifestation of your deepest, most authentic ambitions, it's actually just a psychological trauma response? Like something that has been systematically programmed into you by a deeply flawed society.
Well, when you look at the actual architecture of our modern aspirations and you really trace the historical lineage of how our societies have been structured, that idea, it's stops sounding like a conspiracy theory and it starts looking like the glaring, uncomfortable truth. Because we are all convinced we are climbing this ladder of success, but a massive portion of the population is actually just, frantically trying to build a fortress out of fear.
Wow. Okay, so if you are listening to this on your commute right now, or maybe you are, like, furiously typing out emails, trying to play the corporate game and trying to win, you might want to pause for a second.
Definitely.
Because today, in this deep dive, we are going to absolutely tear the floorboards out from under why you act the way you do, why you want the things you want, and most importantly, how you can actually reclaim your own brain from the systems that are currently running it.
It's so necessary right now.
It really is. And the framework for this deep dive comes from an incredibly illuminating interview featuring Vinjender Chauhan. He's this educator and a seasoned interviewer who has literally sat across from thousands of candidates.
Yeah, his perspective is just invaluable.
Right. He has this uncanny ability to see completely through the modern facade. He takes all these surface-level anxieties we are feeling in 2026, and he traces them back to some truly mind-blowing historical and sociological roots.
And I think his perspective is vital right now because, honestly, we tend to treat our burnout and our career anxiety as like individual failings.
Oh, 100%. It's always my fault.
Exactly. If you are exhausted, you just think, oh, it's because I'm not optimizing my time well enough. But Shahan flips that entirely.
Yeah.
He digs down into this centuries-old social conditioning that has essentially hardwired us to behave in highly predictable ways. We are operating inside a game with completely rigged rules.
Rigged rules, yeah.
And his argument is that until you map out those rules, you don't even stand a chance of playing your own game.
But wait, here's the thing, right? The reality of 2026 is that the job market is absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, artificial intelligence is screening our resumes. Hyper competition is just the baseline now.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're told constantly that we have to project absolute certainty. Like the whole fake it till you make it culture, it isn't just a catchy phrase anymore. It feels like an absolute survival requirement. I mean, if I walk into a room and I'm not projecting unwavering dominance, I'm going to get eaten alive.
That's the feeling, yeah.
But one of the first major bombshells from his analysis is how he completely dismantles this behavior.
Yeah.
He argues we are actually living through a pandemic of fake confidence, to the point where the word itself is basically meaningless now.
Yeah, and he uses this really beautiful concept from Hindi literature to illustrate that collapse of meaning. It's fascinating.
Oh, right, the moon thing. Tell him about the moon thing.
Yeah, so he references a poem by Agaya, who is a very renowned poet, who wrote about how certain metaphors become entirely depleted over time.
Okay.
The poet essentially writes, I don't call you the moon anymore, not because my feelings are shallow, but because every lover for the last 1,000 years has called his beloved the moon.
Oh, wow. So the imagery is just totally exhausted.
Exactly. It's been commodified to the point where it provokes zero real emotion. And Chauhan applies that exact same literary decay to the concept of confidence in our modern world.
That makes so much sense.
The corporate world, the coaching industry, the self-help gurus, they have so thoroughly packaged and sold this idea of self-confidence that it has been completely stripped of any genuine psychological weight.
Because what we are collectively calling confidence today is really usually just volume, isn't it?
Yes, just sheer volume.
It's like it's the person in the boardroom who speaks the loudest, who talks over everyone else, who sits with this aggressive, expansive posture. Like, we have somehow culturally equated sheer amplitude with actual authority.
And Chauhan has witnessed the mechanics of this firsthand, right, from the other side of the interview table. He talks about watching candidates walk into these high-stakes environments, and he says it's literally like watching a poorly programmed android.
That is so bleak. An android.
Because a coaching center has given them a strict behavioral script. They are told exactly how many degrees to angle their chin, exactly where to place their palms on the table.
Oh, I've seen those videos.
Yeah.
Like, never cross your arms, always lean forward 10 degrees.
Right. There's this prevailing myth that talking with your hands shows erratic behavior or a lack of control. So as a result, you see these young professionals who are so terrified of making a wrong gesture that they sit there with this unnatural, rigid stiffness.
Yeah.
They think they're projecting the stillness of calm assurance, but what an experienced observer actually sees is the stillness of absolute petrification. They are terrified.
I hear that, but honestly, let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
If I'm going after a top-tier opportunity right now, and I know there are 1,000 other people fighting for that exact same spot, showing any vulnerability just feels like professional suicide.
I get why you'd feel that way.
Like, if a panel asks me a question I don't fully grasp, I'm going to bluff. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to throw out some buzzwords. I'm going to fill the air with sound. Because if I show hesitation, the algorithm or the panel just filters me out.
But the trap there is assuming the people evaluating you don't understand basic human behavior.
And you don't think they just want the smartest sounding answer?
No, bluffing is incredibly transparent to anyone who isn't easily distracted by shiny packaging. Chauhan is super passionate about this point. Loudness and aggressive posturing are almost invariably symptoms of fear.
Symptoms of fear, wow.
Yeah. If you feel the need to crank up the volume of your voice, or if you refuse to let a single second of silence hang in the air, you are subconsciously signaling that you know your actual content has no weight.
So you're basically overcompensating.
Exactly. You are trying to use sound waves to compensate for a lack of intellectual substance.
Okay, so if confidence isn't the flawless, unshakable presentation, what is the actual functional definition of it, according to him?
He argues that true power is deeply rooted in the capacity for self-evaluation and vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
In a job interview.
Yes. It is the courage to look at an expert panel or your boss or your team and say, I have deep expertise in this area, but that specific variable you just mentioned, I don't know the answer to that.
See, that is terrifying. Saying I don't know is terrifying.
But a genuinely confident person's sense of self-worth is not tethered to the impossible standard of being omniscient. When someone claims to have a miraculous, instantaneous solution to every single complex problem.
Which everyone does on LinkedIn now.
Right.
Yeah.
When they do that, they aren't displaying confidence. They're displaying profound insecurity, or they're just being incredibly cunning.
You know, admitting you don't know something in a high-stakes environment goes against every single survival instinct we've ever been taught. Like, we are conditioned to never leave a blank space on the test. Just guess, fill it in.
Which is exactly where he goes next. Right. And that actually pulls the thread on a much deeper issue Chauhan brings up. Like, why do we feel this desperate physiological need to put on the armor of fake confidence in the first place? And he points the finger directly at the co-conspiracy of the family unit and the modern education system.
Yeah, because the conditioning starts long before you ever enter a corporate boardroom.
Oh, for sure.
It begins in the early dynamics of the family, where questioning authority, whether it's a parent, an elder, or just a traditional way of doing things, is frequently treated as a moral failing.
Like you're a bad kid if you ask why.
Exactly. Subordination is ingrained as the highest virtue. But this early conditioning is then hypercharged by the school system.
Yeah.
From the moment you step into a classroom, you are subjected to this massive, multi-year psychological operation.
A psychological operation. I love that phrasing. Because it really is. It's designed to equate compliance with intelligence.
Yes, exactly.
It's the whole good student matrix, right? The kids who get the gold stars and the praise are the ones who can just sit perfectly still, memorize the textbook, regurgitate the accepted answer, and absolutely never challenge the premise of the teacher's lesson.
The reward mechanisms are entirely distributed based on conformity. I mean, think about it. What is the immediate consequence for the child who asks why?
They get in trouble.
Or the child who points out a logical flaw in the curriculum? They aren't celebrated for their critical thinking. They are labeled a disruption.
Yeah, you get sent to the principal, you get graded poorly, you're socially ostracized.
Right. You learn incredibly fast that intellectual survival means keeping your head down, suppressing your innate curiosity, and conforming to the established narrative. The education system systematically breeds generations of people who are absolutely terrified of intellectual conflict.
Which sets up this fascinating, almost tragic societal dynamic that Chauhan describes. And he uses the biological framework of fight or flight, which is so smart.
It is brilliant.
Because we usually apply that to, like, facing a predator in the woods, right? Like a bear. But he applies it to how we handle systemic civic problems. Because of this exact conditioning, this fear of challenging authority, we have been permanently hardwired to basically always default to flight.
It is a devastatingly accurate framework, and he grounds this massive sociological theory in a very relatable everyday example.
The water filter.
The reverse osmosis, or RO, water purifier.
Yeah. Tell the story about his daughter, because that really hit me.
So he shares this anecdote about his daughter who was studying abroad in Melbourne, Australia. He called her one day and asked, when she planned on moving back to India.
Right.
And her response was chillingly practical. She literally walked over to her kitchen sink, turned on the tap, filled a glass, took a sip, and said, "The day I can turn on a tap in your city and drink the water without thinking, I'll come back."
Wow. Just boom. And the unspoken reality hanging over that conversation is that that day is likely never going to arrive.
Probably not.
Not in Delhi, not in Mumbai, not in countless major metropolitan areas around the world, honestly. But the crucial underlying question isn't just about water quality.
No, it's about why the infrastructure is so fundamentally different.
Exactly.
The answer reveals our entire societal pathology. I mean, think back to the moment the citizens of these rapidly growing cities first realized the municipal tap water was becoming toxic. They faced a fundamental collective choice, fight or flight.
Right.
If they had chosen the fight response, they would have mobilized. They would have organized relentless protests, demanded absolute accountability from the local government, voted out corrupt officials.
They would have forced the entire civic ecosystem to actually repair the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So that clean, safe water flowed from every single tap for every single citizen.
But fighting a broken bureaucracy is exhausting.
Oh, it takes years.
It takes years. It requires collective action, extreme patience, and the willingness to loudly challenge authority, which, as we just established with the good student matrix...
The school system completely beat out of us.
Exactly. So we chose the path of least resistance. We chose flight.
Anyone with a disposable income just picked up their smartphone, called a private company, and had an RO water filtration system installed under their kitchen sink. Problem solved, right? For them, at least.
You purchase a private escape pod from a public disaster. The city's water supply remains completely toxic, but it is no longer your personal problem. You have fled the battlefield.
Yeah.
And the terrifying part is that we replicate this exact behavior across every single pillar of society.
Oh, man, we really do.
When the public school system started failing to provide adequate education, did the middle and upper classes fight to reform them?
Nope, they fled to exorbitantly expensive private schools.
Right. When the public healthcare infrastructure collapsed, did they demand better government hospitals? No, they bought private health insurance and fled to luxury corporate hospitals.
We insulate ourselves in gated communities with private security.
Right.
Like, in every conceivable scenario, we choose the individualistic flight over the collective fight. It's like we are treating society like a freemium app.
A freemium app. That is a great way to put it.
We are. We are just buying premium ad-free subscriptions to bypass the collapsing infrastructure rather than actually, learning how to code and fixing the broken website for everyone. We just keep paying higher and higher fees to wall ourselves off from reality.
And the dark systemic consequence of this, which Chauhan points out with incredible clarity, is that the system absolutely loves it when you choose flight.
Wait, the system loves it?
It is the most ideal outcome for a corrupt or broken establishment.
How so?
Think about the demographic that has the capacity to choose flight. It's the people with money, with education, with social influence, and with the loudest voices.
Okay, yeah.
When the capable and the wealthy abandon the public system, they take all of their leverage with them. So who is left behind relying on the toxic municipal water, the crumbling public schools, and the underfunded clinics?
The voiceless,
Yeah.
the marginalized.
Yes, the people who have absolutely zero political or economic leverage to force a change. Therefore, the system never feels any pressure to improve.
Wow.
By choosing flight, The upper and middle classes effectively guarantee that the public infrastructure will permanently rot. Your private solution ensures a public catastrophe.
That is deeply unsettling because the instinct to protect your family feels so morally justified, Like you think you are being a responsible provider by buying that water filter, but you are actively contributing to the decay of the whole structure.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
It really is. But if we dig even deeper into the why is our default setting always to run away rather than innovate or fix the core problem? Chauhan drops these hidden historical gems in the middle of his analysis that just completely derailed my brain.
The historical context is where everything clicks into place.
He argues that ancient systems of oppression didn't just cause human suffering, which obviously they did, but they literally stunted our technological evolution.
This is where we get into the hidden architecture of civilization. And he compares two parallel historical scenarios that occurred around the peak of the Industrial Revolution to explain how necessity drives innovation and how oppression kills it.
Okay, lay this out for us because this blew my mind.
First, he looks at 19th century London. London was experiencing an unprecedented population boom. The city was expanding massively, and as a result, the River Thames was turning into an absolute biological nightmare.
They called it the Great Stink of 1858, right?
Exactly. The sheer volume of human waste and sewage was creating an unlivable environment. And at the time, they relied on manual scavenging. Laborers, known as night soil men, would come in the dark to manually clean out the cesspits beneath homes.
Which, just to be clear, manual scavenging is one of the most horrific, degrading jobs a human being can possibly endure.
Absolutely. It is awful. But here is the critical economic mechanism in London at that time. Because the work was so incredibly awful, and because the laborers were free citizens operating in a market economy, those workers possessed immense leverage.
Because nobody else wanted to do it.
Right. Nobody wanted to do the job, so the night soil men began demanding astronomical wages. They were charging up to £1 a day, which was an exorbitant sum at the time.
So it hit the wealthy where it hurts, their wallets.
Yes. The cost of manual waste removal became so prohibitively expensive for the citizens of London that society hit a breaking point. But, and this is key, they didn't revolt against the laborers. They revolted against the situation.
They complained to the government.
They pressured Parliament, declaring, we cannot afford this physical labor. We need a scientific engineering solution. And that intense economic pressure forced rapid technological innovation, leading directly to the creation of the modern London underground sewer system.
Which completely revolutionized urban sanitation globally.
Exactly.
So because the cost of free labor was too high, it forced the society to advance. Necessity literally mothered invention. Like, if they could have paid those workers pennies, they never would have built the sewers.
That is the exact contrast Chauhan makes with India during a similar historical time frame. India also had massive growing populations and severe waste management crises. But India did not invent a modern mechanized sewer system because the Indian social structure had engineered a different, far more sinister solution to the problem. Instead of a free market where laborers could demand fair, prohibitive wages that would eventually incentivize technological innovation, society was rigidly stratified through the caste system.
Right, the hierarchy was baked into the religion and the law itself.
Yes. Specific paths were designated forced by birth, social mandate, and the threat of severe violence to perform this exact manual scavenging work. They were an inherited, inescapable underclass created specifically to do the dirty work.
So they basically had a permanent captive labor force.
They had millions of human beings who were forced to absorb the burden of society's waste without dignity, without respect, and crucially, without the ability to demand fair wages.
Wow.
Because the upper echelons of society had guaranteed free and captive labor for its most degrading tasks, there was absolute zero economic pressure to innovate.
That makes total sense. Why would you build a machine if a person has to do it for free?
Why would a society invest massive capital and intellectual energy into inventing a complex underground engineering solution when they had an entire demographic of people they could violently force to do the work for almost nothing?
That is a staggering realization. We look at the caste system primarily as a moral and human rights atrocity, which it absolutely is. But Chauhan is pointing out that it was also a massive technological dead end.
Oppression is the enemy of innovation.
The enemy of innovation.
When a society categorizes labor, assigns a hierarchy of human dignity to it, and decrees that a certain group of people are genetically meant for the bottom, they completely kill the friction required for progress. We are still feeling the economic and technological ripple effects of that social stratification today.
Because the desire to avoid manual labor at all costs and just rely on cheap human subjugation, it fundamentally slowed down the entire region's modernization.
Exactly.
And he doesn't just apply this to like grand civic engineering projects. He brings this concept right into the center of the home with an example that I have literally never considered in my entire life.
The hot roti paradox.
The hot roti paradox. This fundamentally shifts how you view everyday domestic life. Walk us through this.
It is a brilliant, highly specific observation. Chauhan asks a simple, profound question. Why were women in this part of the world held back for so long, practically imprisoned in the domestic sphere, completely cut off from economic and intellectual participation?
Right.
He traces a massive part of this systemic subjugation back to a specific, almost invisible culinary demand. The cultural obsession with serving fresh, round, unleavened bread rotis or fulkas served piping hot to the men of the family at every single meal.
Wait. We are talking about the systematic immobilization of half the population because of a preference for bread.
Yes. Follow the mechanics of the tradition. In many traditional households, it is considered the ultimate virtue, the absolute minimum standard of domestic care, that the men and the elders receive hot, puffed rotis straight from the stove to their plate. If a man is served cold bread or food cooked earlier in the day, it's culturally coded as a tragedy. It's viewed as a sign of a neglected, miserable household.
Okay, so the cultural weight on the temperature of the food is immense. But how does that relate to oppression? Like specifically?
Contrast this specific dietary staple with the staple bread in Western societies. In the West, the diet evolved around leavened bread made with yeast.
Right, like a loaf of sourdough or something.
What is the fundamental functional difference? Leavened bread can be baked once in a large batch, and it lasts for a week. You bake it, you store it, and you consume it over several days. It frees up time.
Okay.
But an unleavened roti must be prepared and consumed immediately. The dough must be kneaded, rolled, and cooked one by one right as the meal is happening.
Oh, I see where this is going.
To maintain this cultural standard of the hot roti for every meal, there must permanently be a woman stationed in the kitchen. She is physically tethered to the stove for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. While the men are eating, discussing politics, or conducting business in the other room, the women are in the kitchen rolling dough in real time.
So the physical properties of the food they chose to eat dictated the physical boundaries of a woman's life.
Precisely. To ensure the men received their preferred culinary experience, women paid the price with their mobility, their education, and their potential to participate in the outside world.
That's wild.
The social structure demanded this specific, time-consuming labor, and it normalized the complete sacrifice of women's agency to provide it. The freshness of the bread was weaponized as a mechanism of control.
Weaponized freshness.
And again, tying back to the London sewer analogy. Because this massive amount of labor was extracted from women entirely for free, under this heavy guise of family duty and virtue, there was zero necessity for the society to innovate its culinary habits or embrace time-saving technology.
Right. Why invent a bread machine or change your diet if someone is forced to do it for you?
Exactly. When you can oppress a group into doing the tedious work for free, society simply does not evolve.
That is just, it is so insidious because it's wrapped in the language of love and tradition. Like, I am making you fresh food because I care about you, but the structural reality is I am trapped in this room so you can have exactly what you want.
It's control disguised as care.
And this exact historical obsession with social hierarchy, this deeply ingrained cultural desire to maintain status by forcing others to do the labor, it leads us directly into the massive aha moment of this deep dive.
Yes, it all connects here.
Because this history directly infects the biggest crisis of our modern lives in 2026, our careers.
We have to confront how this centuries-old fear of the bottom tier translates into the modern hustle.
Okay, so Chauhan starts unpacking what he calls the diversity of dreams, or more accurately, the terrifying lack of it. We're talking about India, a country of 1.4 billion people. Statistically, you would expect billions of wildly unique, divergent aspirations. You would expect massive subcultures of artists, specialized engineers, avant-garde architects, niche manufacturers.
You'd expect everything under the sun.
Exactly. But what does the data actually show?
It shows a frightening homogenization of ambition. Out of 1.4 billion unique human minds, society has essentially authorized only about 4 acceptable, respectable dreams.
Yeah.
You become an engineer, you become a doctor, you crack the civil services to become a government bureaucrat, or you somehow secure the funds to go abroad. That is essentially the entire menu. Those are the canonical pathways to achieving human dignity.
And because the entire massive population is being aggressively funneled into these 4 tiny restrictive lanes, you create this brutal overpopulation of goals. You have millions of people fighting for a handful of spots.
Yes, Chauhan identifies this as the aspiration gap, and nature abhors a vacuum, right? So an entire multi-billion-dollar coaching industry has sprung up purely to monetize this gap.
Oh, the coaching industry. It is a masterclass in weaponizing hope and survivor bias. They sell the illusion that this mathematical impossibility can be overcome if you just, buy their specific course, move to their specific coaching Hope City, and sacrifice your entire youth to their curriculum.
Let's look at the brutal mathematics he points out regarding the civil services exam.
Yeah, let's do the math.
This is the test to become an IAS officer, which is the Indian Administrative Service, the absolute pinnacle of elite government bureaucracy.
How many people apply for this?
Roughly 1 million people apply for this exam every single year.
1 million.
And how many actual spots are available across the entire country? About 958.
1 million applicants.
Yeah.
958 jobs. That is a success rate of less than 0.1%.
And the crucial factor is that the number of jobs is relatively static. It does not matter how many billions of dollars are poured into the coaching ecosystem. It doesn't matter if parents mortgage their homes to pay for better tutors.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if 2 million people apply next year instead of 1 million. There will still only be roughly 958 spots.
You cannot outstudy a mathematical hard cap.
You cannot. The coaching industry isn't actually increasing the total number of successes. It is merely facilitating a highly profitable, vicious churn where person A might replace person B in that top 0.1%.
And meanwhile, they plaster the faces of those 958 winners on massive billboards across the country,
completely blinding the public to the statistical reality of the 999,000 people who are guaranteed to fail.
They are selling lottery tickets, but packaging them as a meritocracy. And the emotional toll of this is what he calls mental infidelity, right?
Yes, mental infidelity. It's a great term.
Because you have millions of incredibly smart, capable young people who spend years trying to crack this exam, eventually age out, and are forced to take other jobs in the private sector just to survive. But their minds are entirely somewhere else. They are sitting at a desk doing digital marketing or software sales or logistics, but they are still fantasizing about that civil service uniform. They are married to one job while constantly daydreaming about another, so they are never mentally present, and therefore they are never truly fulfilled.
Which brings us to the most uncomfortable, shattering question of this entire analysis. Why?
Right. Why do we want this so badly?
Why does a 10-year-old child or a 15-year-old teenager naturally dream of being a government bureaucrat? Chauhan asks us to look closely at the actual fantasy being sold. Does an 8-year-old child genuinely dream of sitting behind a massive wooden desk with a white towel draped over the back of their chair, meticulously signing administrative files and reviewing infrastructure budgets from morning till night?
Of course not. A kid dreams of exploring space or playing professional sports or building robots, things with movement and discovery. The image of the bureaucrat signing paperwork in a silent office is incredibly sterile. It's dry. So how does it become the ultimate obsessive aspiration for millions of young people?
Because it's not actually about the work. And if we are being brutally honest, it's not even really about ambition in the traditional sense of wanting to achieve something great.
Then what is it? What is driving millions of people to destroy their mental health over this?
It is an overwhelming generational desire to escape humiliation.
Escaping humiliation.
Wait. Look back at the deeply stratified, hierarchical society we just discussed. A society that historically assigned dignity based on birth and currently assigns it based on power.
Okay.
In this system, dignity is not a basic, universal human right. It is a highly rationed, scarce commodity. The vast majority of ordinary citizens live under the constant, suffocating, everyday threat of humiliation.
By who?
Everyone above them. If you are just a regular person walking down the street, a low-level police constable can insult you without consequence. A local municipal official can demean you and delay your paperwork for months just to exercise their power.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
A wealthy person in a larger car can run you off the road and humiliate you in public. Ordinary people breathe in the fear of being disrespected every single day of their lives.
So it's about survival. It's not a dream, it's a defense mechanism.
It is entirely about survival. Pursuing these prestige roles, becoming an IAS officer, securing a high-ranking government title is not a journey of self-actualization. It is a desperate, frantic attempt to buy dignity in a market where dignity is artificially scarce.
You want the badge so they can't hurt you.
It is an attempt to build an impenetrable fortress of state power around yourself and your family. The subconscious logic is, if I get that job, if I get that specific uniform and that official car, no one, no local thug, no corrupt official, no arrogant, wealthy neighbor will ever dare to humiliate me or my parents ever again.
And the tragic, toxic trade-off is that by entering that system, you often simply inherit the power to inflict that exact same humiliation on those below you.
Exactly. It's a cycle
that completely reframes everything. The career goals that millions of people are literally sacrificing their youth over, the things they cry themselves to sleep over when they fail, they aren't dreams at all. They are trauma responses.
Yes.
They're psychological shields forged out of a deep-seated societal fear.
That is the exact tragedy Chauhan is exposing. Society robbed its citizens of basic, unconditional dignity and then set up an impossible gauntlet, an exam with a 0.1% success rate, as the only legitimate, culturally celebrated way to win that dignity back.
That is just heartbreaking.
Your individual, genuine dreams, to be a musician, an entrepreneur, a teacher, a builder, were hijacked early on. They were replaced by a survival mechanism implanted by a broken social hierarchy. You think you're chasing a glorious dream, but you are actually just sprinting away from the ever-present threat of societal degradation.
We aren't grinding to build lives. We are grinding to build walls.
Well said.
That is a heavy, heavy realization to carry into the office on a Monday morning.
It really is.
But we have to look at how this evolves, because we aren't just dealing with the ghosts of the 19th century anymore. If our dreams have historically been implanted in us by societal fear and ancient stratifications, what is happening right now in 2026?
The mechanism of control has mutated.
Right. We are no longer just dealing with the expectations of our parents or the threats of local officials. We have willingly handed the keys of our minds over to an entirely new, infinitely more powerful, and completely invisible system of oppression.
We have to talk about algorithms as the new oppressor.
Yes, let's get into the digital side of this.
Yeah. Chauhan focuses intensely on Gen Z and the generation coming after them because they are the first demographic to enter adulthood with absolutely zero memory of a pre-internet world.
They are digital natives in the truest sense.
To older generations, the digital landscape is a tool we learn to use. To Gen Z, the digital landscape is base reality.
And the massive existential danger they face. And honestly, the danger we all face now that our phones are essentially prosthetic extensions of our brains is the sheer, unrelenting bombardment of information.
The volume is unprecedented.
The volume of content is so high and the delivery is so constant that it has effectively destroyed our cognitive ability to pause and question. When you are drowning in a tsunami of high dopamine content, you simply do not have the mental bandwidth to critically evaluate what you are consuming.
And this is exactly where the algorithms step in. They offer to manage the overload for you.
Right.
And in doing so, they quietly start doing the thinking for you.
But hold on, let me push back on this because I hear the algorithms are evil argument all the time, and I struggle with it. In my day-to-day life, the algorithm feels like incredible efficiency. My feed is amazing. It knows exactly what kind of architecture videos I like. It recommends incredibly accurate music. It shows me products I actually want to buy. It curates a frictionless, perfect experience for me. It feels like I have a personalized digital concierge. Why is that oppression?
It feels like luxury precisely because it is designed to be frictionless.
Okay.
Friction is where conscious thought happens. When you remove friction, you remove agency.
Oh.
Chauhan is incredibly adamant about this counter-argument. He says, your agency to decide for yourself should stay with you. When you allow the algorithm to decide what you consume next, you are slowly, incrementally surrendering your free will.
Because someone else is driving.
Because you have to look at the motivations of the entities controlling these algorithms. They are, as he aptly calls them, absent actors. They are faceless, multinational corporations operating out of server farms, and they possess absolutely zero moral obligation towards your well-being.
Their only metric is engagement, time on screen.
Exactly. They do not care if the content they feed you improves your mental health, fosters your personal growth, or makes you a better citizen. They care entirely about their own utility, their ad revenue, and perfecting their behavioral prediction models.
Right. Whatever keeps my eyeballs locked in.
And the terrifying part is that it is no longer just about suggesting a pair of sneakers or a catchy song. Algorithms are now dictating the trajectory of human lives.
They really are.
They dictate what you dream about by feeding you endless streams of curated, impossible lifestyles, making you feel perpetually inadequate. They are dictating who your romantic partners are through dating apps that gamify and commodify human connection.
Swiping left and right on human beings.
They are even dictating who you vote for and what you believe to be objectively true by subtly trapping you in hyper-targeted political echo chambers. If you hand over the steering wheel to an absent actor, they will drive you wherever it profits them the most.
Even if that destination requires making you deeply hate yourself or your own neighbors.
Especially if it does. Anger and insecurity drive massive engagement.
So we've essentially traded the physical oppression of the caste system and the domestic entrapment of the hot roadie for the invisible psychological oppression of the infinite scroll. We've just moved from iron cages to digital ones.
That's a very stark way of putting it, but yes.
But if the situation is that deeply embedded in our daily lives in 2026, how the hell do we survive it? Because the reality is I can't just throw my phone in a lake and go live in the woods. I need it for work, for banking, for communication.
You can't escape the internet, and Shahan acknowledges that reality, but he doesn't leave us in a dystopia. He offers a very practical, actionable daily framework for reclaiming your brain.
The 3 C's.
Yes, he calls it the 3 C's.
Okay, if you have been multitasking, come back to me. Listen up. This is the blueprint for surviving the digital environment we just described. What is the first C?
The first C is choice. It sounds deceptively simple, but it requires a radical daily shift in your physical behavior. It means you must actively train yourself to search rather than passively scroll.
Search over scroll.
When you open an app and immediately let the algorithmic feed wash over you, the machine is in charge. You have adopted a posture of surrender. You are the product being manipulated.
Yeah, you're just receiving.
But the moment you tap the search bar, when you consciously formulate a thought and say, I want to learn about the history of jazz today, or I want to find a tutorial on woodworking, you instantly reclaim your agency.
Because you made a choice.
You are issuing a command to the machine, rather than letting the machine issue commands to your subconscious.
Okay, so search over scroll reclaims your agency regarding what you look at. You choose the destination.
Yeah.
But that doesn't solve the problem of the content itself still being manipulative or false once you actually find it.
Exactly, which is why the second C is the vital defense mechanism, critical thinking.
Right.
This ties directly back to the failure of our education system that we discussed earlier. Because school didn't teach us how to question, we have to actively self-teach the capacity to reject information.
We have to learn how to be difficult.
Yes. Just because a video is presented to you with incredibly high production value, a confident-sounding narrator, and 3 million likes, does not mean you have to automatically accept it into your worldview. You have to build a mental firewall.
Pause and question.
You have to train your brain to pause mid-video and ask, why is this specific piece of information being shown to me right now? What is the financial or political agenda of the creator? What data are they leaving out? You have to become comfortable with intellectual friction.
You literally have to become the bad student that the school system tried to punish. You have to ask why. And the final C.
Cancel comparison. This is arguably the most vital for day-to-day mental health in 2026.
Oh, comparison is the thief of joy.
You have to aggressively stop comparing the chaotic, unedited, behind-the-scenes reality of your actual life to the highly curated, meticulously edited, digitally altered highlight reels of someone else's life.
Everyone knows this, but it's so hard to do.
Shahan uses this brilliant metaphor of a physical video background. When you watch an influencer, don't look at their perfectly styled bookshelf, their flawless lighting, and their spotless kitchen and compare it to your messy living room.
Right.
Their background is a literal movie set. Your life is an actual functioning reality. If you compare the two, you're comparing apples to digital illusions, and you will always, always feel like a failure.
Choice, critical thinking, cancel comparison. It is a necessary defensive strategy against a massive, incredibly well-funded psychological operation. It paints a pretty grim picture of the battlefield we are on, though.
It does, but here's the twist, and this is where Chauhan's analysis takes a really unexpected optimistic turn.
Optimism. Finally.
Despite algorithms, despite the trauma-based career drives, his hope for the future lies entirely with the demographic that is currently taking the heaviest fire: Gen Z.
Really? Because Gen Z gets a lot of hate.
It is a profound reframing of the current generational divide. If you listen to older generations, they constantly complain about Gen Z. They label them fragile, entitled, distracted, and lazy.
They say they don't want to work.
But Chauhan looks at the exact same behavior and sees something completely revolutionary. He sees a generation that has fundamentally, instinctively rejected the flight response we talked about earlier with the RO water filter.
Oh, wow. They aren't running away.
Unlike previous generations that had to be heavily mobilized, pleaded with, and convinced to stand up against civic injustice, Gen Z naturally defaults to the fight response.
That is so true. He points out how they are constantly on the front lines, organizing rapidly. They fight for climate action. They fight for animal rights. They fight for labor transparency.
Yes.
They possess this innate burning sense that things should be fundamentally better, and they absolutely refuse to be satisfied with the crumbs of the status quo that older generations just quietly accepted.
Precisely. They are looking at the legacy systems they inherited. The prison of the single lifelong corporate career, the suffocating familial hierarchies that demanded unquestioning obedience, the toxic work environments. And they are collectively saying, no, we reject the premise of this game.
They're flipping the board.
They are aggressively embracing fluidity. They are willing to experiment, to fail publicly, to move from career A to career B, or even completely reinvent their identities without seeing it as a moral failure. They are refusing to be bound by the restrictive, fear-based structures that force their parents into lives of quiet, agonizing desperation.
Okay, I understand the optimism there. I really do.
Yeah.
But let's look at the friction this causes in the real world.
Sure.
Isn't there a severe destabilizing downside to this endless fluidity? From an outside perspective, it often looks like a profound lack of resilience or patience. Like a young person hits one minor bureaucratic obstacle at a new job, and instead of navigating it, they just quit.
I hear that criticism a lot.
They face one serious disagreement in a romantic relationship. And because the social stigma around breaking up is mostly gone now, they just walk away. Doesn't building anything deeply meaningful, whether it's mastering a career, sustaining a marriage, or reforming a society, doesn't that require enduring some level of friction and discomfort? Are we just throwing the baby out with the bathwater in the name of boundaries?
That is the most common critique, and it's true that the transition we are living through right now is undeniably chaotic. But Chauhan offers a brilliant macro perspective on this exact friction. You have to zoom out and look at the historical trajectory.
Okay, zooming out.
We are moving away from an era of silent, mandatory oppression, an era where people endured horrific abuse in marriages or soul-crushing, exploitative misery in their jobs simply because society absolutely forbade them from leaving.
Right? You just had to stick it out.
We are transitioning from that dark age into an era where individuals are finally demanding baseline equality, respect, and personal fulfillment.
So it's the pendulum effect. We've swung from total suppression to total reaction.
Exactly. When you take a tightly compressed spring that has been held down for decades and you finally release it, it doesn't immediately settle into a perfect, calm equilibrium in the middle. It bounces wildly. It creates chaos.
That makes perfect visual sense.
This perceived lack of patience, this quickness to walk away from toxic bosses or unfulfilling relationships, is a symptom of a highly fluid transitional period.
Yeah.
Yes, it causes short-term instability for corporations and traditional institutions, but this absolute unwavering refusal to tolerate oppression, this immediate demand to be treated as an equal human being, is a necessary chaos. It is the exact friction required to eventually establish a new, far healthier societal baseline.
A new baseline.
The old system demanded endless, silent patience for systemic abuse. The new system demands immediate, unconditional respect. When you frame it like that, the chaos of the new is infinitely preferable to the silent suffering of the old.
That completely shatters the commitment-phobic or lazy job hopper labels that get slapped on younger people. They aren't lost. They are actively recalibrating the baseline of human dignity for all of us.
They are fighting the fight we were too afraid to fight.
Wow. We have covered an immense, staggering amount of ground today in this deep dive. Let's try to synthesize the sheer scale of the journey we just took.
It's been a lot. We started by dismantling the modern illusion of confidence, realizing that the loudest, most aggressive person in the boardroom is often the most terrified, and that genuine power lies in the vulnerability of admitting what you do not know.
Right. And then we explored how our education system meticulously trains us to be compliant, good students, effectively hardwiring us to flee from public problems, like buying a private water filter rather than fighting to fix the civic structure.
And then we dug deep into the hidden historical mechanics of innovation and oppression. We saw how the simple culinary demand for hot, unleavened rotis effectively kept half the population immobilized in kitchens for generations.
We contrasted the London sewers with the caste system, realizing that when a society can violently force a captive demographic to do its worst labor for free, it completely kills the economic necessity that drives technological progress.
And that historical context brought us to the explosive realization at the core of our modern 2026 anxieties. The profound truth that the highly sought-after, hyper-competitive careers we obsess over are often not genuine manifestations of our ambition.
They are trauma responses. They are desperate, exhausting attempts to build bureaucratic fortresses against a society that constantly threatens ordinary people with daily humiliation.
Finally, we confronted the invisible oppressors of our current decade, the algorithms that seek to strip us of our cognitive agency by removing all friction from our lives. But amidst that dystopian reality, we found genuine hope in the fighting spirit of a younger generation that is absolutely refusing to settle for the silent, patient oppression of the past.
The overarching mission of this deep dive was to help you decode the invisible social engineering behind your everyday choices. And the takeaway is actionable. You must reclaim your agency.
Apply the 3 C's daily. Actively choose your inputs by searching instead of scrolling. Build a mental firewall of critical thinking to question why information is being fed to you. And fiercely cancel the toxic habit of comparing your messy reality to digital illusions.
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought for you to carry into the rest of your week. I want you to literally pull out your phone, look at your calendar, and look at your to-do list right now.
Do it right now.
Identify the biggest, most exhausting, most stressful goal you are currently chasing in your life, the one you are sacrificing your sleep and your relationships for. And I want you to ask yourself, with brutal, unflinching honesty, is that your dream? Is it a fire burning from within you, pulling you towards something you genuinely love? Or is it a manufactured dream that a profit-driven algorithm or an ancient, fear-based social hierarchy quietly implanted in your mind to keep you running efficiently on their treadmill?
It is a question that changes everything.
It's your brain. It's your life. It's time to decide who is really in control.